Well, we can also convert decimals back into fractions. So we have seen the conversion of fractions to decimal. Now we will look at the reverse conversion, that is conversion of decimals into fractions. So we are dealing with decimal numbers and we will convert decimal numbers to fractions. Let us see how this conversion can be carried out. Let us take examples of a few decimal numbers. So for example, let us take the first example as 0.3. And suppose we want to convert this decimal number into a fraction. Now, the rule to convert a decimal to a fraction is we first write down the number without the decimal point. So here we will make a table wherein we are writing number without decimal point. So in this first column we will write the same number but without the decimal point. Now here we have a 0.3. Now if I do not take the decimal point, I get the number 3. So I have filled up this first entry which gives me the number without the decimal point written. The next thing I will do is I will count the number of places or the number of digits to the right of the decimal point. So we will call decimal places count. So we will call this as the count of decimal places, that is the number of decimal places to the right of the decimal point. So this becomes our second column. Now note that here in this number the decimal point is here and the number of digits to the right of the decimal point is 1 because there is just one digit to the right of the decimal point which is 3, and so we can say that the number of decimal places is equal to 1. And because we have one digit to the right of the decimal point, we say that we can now multiply this number by a power of 10 that contains 1 0. And so the power of 10 that I will take that contains 1 0 will be the divisor of this. And so I will now write down the equivalent fraction. So we started with a decimal number 0.3 which we saw was a decimal number, and now we wanted to convert it into a fraction. So first what we did was we wrote down the number without the decimal point, and so we wrote down 3 itself without the decimal point. Next step is I count the number of digits to the right of the decimal point. In this case the number of digits to the right of the decimal point was 1, and so I wrote decimal places count as 1. And because this count is 1, I will now divide this numerator 3 by a power of 10 that has 1 zeros. Now we know that power of 10 having 1 zeros is 10 itself, and so I get 3 by 10 as the value of this fraction or the value of this decimal number. Well, let us extend this example and look at yet another decimal number that we will deal with. Now let us assume that the next decimal number we have is 0.71, and now we want to convert this decimal number into an equivalent fraction. The step is exactly the same. The first thing we do is write down this number without the decimal point, and the number without decimal point is 71. Now I count the number of decimal places, and decimal places is the number of digits to the right of this decimal point. Now the decimal point is here and the number of digits to the right is 2, and so I will write 2 here. And because there are 2 digits to the right, because this count is 2, I will now shift the I will now divide this number by a power of 10 that has 2 zeros. So I will now write this number as 71 upon 100. Because there is a 2 here, I will now write 2 zeros, and so I get 71 upon 100 is equal to this fraction, or this decimal number is equal to 71 upon 100. So the first result we write is 3 upon 10 is the equivalent of 0.3, and similarly 71 upon 100 is the equivalent of 0.71. So these are our answers in the first 2 cases. Let us now take one more example. Suppose we have a number such as 13.57. Now in this number, note that if I write the same number without considering the decimal point, then what will happen? Well, I'll first complete this table here. And now I want to convert this into an equivalent fraction. Now here without the decimal point the number is 1357. So I have written the number without the decimal point. Next thing I do is I count the number of digits to the right of the decimal point. Now here the number of digits to the right of the decimal point is 2, and so here I have 2 digits, and so I will shift in this number 2 places to the left. And because the number of decimal places here is 2, what I will now do is divide this by a power of 100 that has 2 zeros. And I know that if I divide this number 1357 by a power of 10 that has 2 zeros, then such a power is 100, because 100 is the power of 10 that has 2 zeros, and so upon this division I will get this as the equivalent fraction for 13.57. So the answer is 13.57 can be written as 1357 divided by 100. So in this manner we can convert given decimal number into a fraction by dividing by the correct power of 100. Note that in some cases the numerator and denominator can be further simplified. So for example, if you take a number such as 0.75, so this again is a decimal number, but if we want to convert this into a fraction, we will follow the same procedure. We will first count, or we will first discount the decimal point and write the number without the decimal point, which in this case is 75. Then what we will do is, we will now check the number, or check the number of digits to the right of the decimal point. Now here the decimal point is here and the number of digits to the right is 2, and so I have 2 digits to the right, and so I will divide 75 by a power of 10 having 2 zeros, and so I write 75 upon 100, and we know that 75 upon 100 can be also written as 3 upon 4, and so 3 upon 4 is the equivalent of 0.75, and in this way we can convert the given decimal number into an equivalent fraction.